What's up everybody, Mr. Voiles here. Today I'm going to show you a really cool tutorial. Today we're talking about how to do space stuff inside of Photoshop. So we're going to start out today with an asteroid. I thought that would be really cool. So what I'm going to do is go to my paint bucket tool, click and hold, and I'm going to go to my gradient. And I've got two different colors here. I've got basically black, and then my second color is kind of a dark blue. And what I'm hoping to do is replicate kind of like an evening sky. So I'm going to click and drag that line all the way across the canvas, something like that. Okay, so I've got my background, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder, and I'm just going to call this stars. And then inside of this folder, I'll make a new layer, and yep, that's inside of that folder. And what I'm going to do is change my color to white. And I'm going to go get a simple paintbrush, and we're going to use just like a regular old paintbrush here. And so if I go up to general and click on hard round, because I do want the hardness all the way up so I get definition on my star. And then we'll bring the size to about, I would say 1 or 2 or 3 pixels. And you can use the bracket tool because, you know, some stars are different sizes than others. And so you can kind of change the size of your brush there to give you some different size stars. And I'm just going to kind of click some stars out here on my canvas. And we'll do a couple of big ones in the background here. That might be kind of neat. And you know, when you're looking closer to the horizon in the evening, you're going to see that the stars seem a little more faint and they're brighter as you look up to the you know, if you're looking high in the sky, it's kind of like the higher you look, the clearer you can see the stars, because you're not having to look through as much of the atmosphere. And stars can just be wherever you want. And you know, they're not always evenly spaced apart. They're kind of clustered together in some areas and, you know, far apart in others. So you can kind of just have fun painting stars. Okay, so I've got my stars in the background, and to me that looks really good. If you kind of get tired of painting stars, what you can do is go to your layer, drag and duplicate that, and we can Command T on that whole layer and literally just rotate and create even more stars. Pretty neat, huh? And actually, because I still want to keep the stars thin at the bottom, so I think what I'm going to do is right click and choose flip horizontal, and that way I get some stars kind of over here in the corner as well. I think that'll be good. And I'll click enter and we'll place that, and that looks great. Okay, so I'm going to collapse my stars and keep those in that folder. Now it's time to create the asteroid. So the first thing that I want to do is create a new layer, and we're going to go up to our brushes again, but this time I'm going to choose a brush right here on this little triangle. You go and choose, let's collapse general brushes and look through special effects brushes. And there's a brush in here that I like to use called Spatter, Kyle's Spatter brush. And so we'll come over here, and I'm going to make the brush kind of small, and it paints a lot bigger than what it looks like. So I'm just going to kind of paint like a spot here and then just kind of drag it out. And we're going to kind of do this in a straight line, and you'll see why here in just a second, because I want to make it look like it's brighter in the middle, if that kind of makes sense, and kind of like it's, you know, spreading out like it's got a tail. Okay, but we want to kind of keep that tail longer, and definitely keep the head of the comet kind of bright. So sort of like that. I think that looks pretty good. I'll enlarge my brush just a little bit here, and I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to go up to filter, and I'm going to choose blur, and this is really fun. This part right here, you're going to choose motion blur. So check that out. Isn't that neat? So check this out. You can bring that, you don't want to bring it up really like all the way, because then you won't be able to tell what it is. But I like to go kind of somewhere around in the middle there. I think that looks pretty cool. And then you see this little circle with this line, you can kind of drag that around and change the angle of your motion blur. And my comet here is kind of pretty much horizontal, so I'm going to keep that line horizontal, and maybe not that much, maybe somewhere in here. That looks pretty good because I'm losing the head of the comet there. So let's do about right here, because I do want to make it look like it's going kind of fast, and then I'll click OK. So that looks awesome. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to duplicate this, because if you've ever looked at a picture of a comet always has two tails. So there's a tail from the ice that's being left behind, but then there's also a tail that's being blown away in another direction by the rays of the sun, and that's usually the gas. I think that's correct. But a comet usually has two tails, and you can actually tell, like, sometimes they're even different colors. So we've got two of these layers here, okay? And what I'm going to do is Command T, and I'm going to rotate one of them, and we're going to rotate it kind of upwards, and maybe kind of change the shape a little bit of it here, maybe make it a little bit more prominent, maybe even bigger, like that. I think that looks pretty cool right there. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so maybe this tail is a little bit bigger, and you know, it's up to you and your creativity. Now you guys know about layer styles. We're going to put a layer style on this second one, and I'm going to go to, I just double click the gray space right here in the layer, or this, you can do the same thing by doing the FX button. And we're going to go in here and we're going to check on outer glow. Outer glow is a really cool effect, and I've already chosen my color here. You can choose, you know, lots of different colors. I'm going to stay with kind of a bluish color, because, you know, comets are kind of bluish usually when I've seen them. And it was pretty cool. The last time we had a comet, it was called Comet Neowise. And I think that was like 2019, 2020, 2019. Might have been early 2020 last year, like right before I met you guys. And I went out and took pictures of that comet. That was really cool. So I've got my outer glow, and I'm going to change the size. I think that looks pretty good right there. We might change the opacity. I don't want to make it too strong. Let me see. The range looks pretty decent, and I'll bring up the size. I want it to glow pretty bright, but you know, if it doesn't glow enough, we can always do another trick that I'm about to show you here. I'm gonna click OK. So that's looking pretty dang awesome right there. So that looks pretty good. Okay, and we might actually put the one with the glow underneath. That way it's not kind of covering up the other part of the tail. Okay, let's see, what else? So let's just say we want to add a little bit. As you can see, I lost the head of the comet. So what I want to do is I'm going to my circle selection. So let's make a new layer. We can call this head, like the head of the comet. Okay, and this is where all of the ice and the rock is, and we're gonna just color this white, and then we'll deselect, and then we're going to go up to filter, blur, and this time instead of motion blur, we're gonna do Gaussian blur. So a Gaussian blur is just a basic blur, and that blurred it a little too much. Let's blur it. Maybe I'm just gonna go little bit at a time here, and I would say somewhere around 24 looks pretty good. And sometimes, guys, with this stuff, you're just eyeballing it, to be honest. And I'm going to Command T, and we're going to stretch this out a little bit. I'm gonna hold down Shift, and we'll shrink it down, and we don't want it to be too big. And actually, you know what? Maybe we just keep it like that. That way it kind of stays really strong on the front. See how I did that, guys? And now what I want to do is a bigger glow, and this time I'm going to do like a color. And so for this one, I'm going to do probably, let's do kind of maybe like a purple color for this one. This will be kind of neat. And we'll click the paint bucket again, and then we'll deselect, and we'll do that again. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and we'll bring up the blur pretty good this time. I just want it to be kind of like a really faint kind of a glow, okay? And then I'm going to Command T, and then for this one I'm going to right click inside of here and click on perspective, and we're going to kind of bring the perspective out like this, and then we'll go back to scale, and then we'll kind of scale it like that. Maybe make it a little bit smaller. It got kind of, looks like it got kind of big there. Got a little too big. And then let's do skew, and we'll skew it kind of back like that, and then we'll hit return, and that is looking really cool. I like that. Command T, let's make it just a little bit bigger. Yeah, see, it looks like it's glowing at the front, and then we'll put this glow underneath all of the other layers just so that it's not blocking anything, you know. And it's kind of like whatever looks best to you, you know. And then we'll highlight all of our layers, and we'll shrink them all at the same time. Actually, no, it looks pretty good big like that, actually. And then we'll actually stretch them out like this. And I think that looks pretty awesome. What do you guys think? You guys can probably do a way better job than me. And maybe we'll even do some perspective on that and make it look like it's flying out, sort of like that. You see how that perspective works? I don't think I've ever shown you guys that before. And I'll hit return, and let's do Command T, and then we'll rotate it away again just so that it looks like it's another tail. Awesome, guys. So there's your Comet, and let me know if you have any problems with that. You know, just have fun, be creative. This is all just for fun. We will see you guys next time. God bless.